Ditch those clowns and jokers. Join me in the middle with your independent minds. All you've got to do is click the subscribe button and ring that little bell, and you'll then get the most independent presentations on all of YouTube. Thanks for watching. Elie Honig, no stranger to this audience. He's been a frequent guest. He is the former SDNY prosecutor, former director of the New Jersey Division of Criminal Justice, current CNN legal analyst, and now the author of Hatchet Man. His brand new book, the subject matter is Bill Barr. Quote, "He has been the right man at the right time for that difficult job, with the principles and the toughness to make difficult decisions despite bitter Democrats in Congress and a willful President Trump." Oh, wait, that is not a quote from Elie's book. That is a quote from the Wall Street Journal when they thanked Bill Barr for his exemplary service as the Attorney General. Elie, what did they get wrong?
I guess I'll say everything. Let me start with that. I actually thought, Michael, first of all, thank you very much for having me.
Were you nervous, by the way? I was so excited about that setup. Were you nervous and thinking, holy crap, that's not my book?
No, you tricked me, because I'll tell you what I thought you were quoting and what I thought that was. I have a section in the book where I talk about how various commentators, people who had been critical of the Trump administration, myself included, were positive about William Barr when his name was announced.
When it was named, right.
Right. And I quote myself, because you know how things happen in this world of media. I happened to be on set that day at CNN with Brooke Baldwin, and they got in my little earpiece and said, "We have the name of the person that's about to be announced as Trump's nominee. It's Bill Barr." Now, it rang a bell for me because he is, little trivia question, one of two people ever to be Attorney General of the United States twice. He was in the early 90s under George H.W. Bush. So it rang a bell, and I did some quick research. Now, important footnote, this is before we saw and knew of the memo he had pre-written saying he was going to gut the Mueller investigation. But I asked the CNN producer, I said, "Can you pull that clip of me on whatever date?" And she found it. And I quote myself in the book. I said something along the lines of, "Bill Barr is a serious person. He has done the job before. He's experienced. He seems to be respected. And I think he's a strong pick." Now, I thought that's what you were about to read. The fact that Wall Street Journal wrote that at the end, I quarrel with all of that. But
what's interesting, I was going to say, is that the date is December 14, 2020. So this is the sign off editorial. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was going to say, I put that in the book because I think it's important that people know I didn't have it out for this guy. I was willing to give him I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and then he spent 2 years trashing it. And yeah, it's interesting to see some of these efforts out there, Michael, by Bill Barr himself and by maybe others, Wall Street Journal, to rehabilitate the image, but I'm not having that.
Well, Elie, I want to reference this date because I always said here on air, who leaves in mid-December when the gig is only going to go until January 20th anyway? Yeah. I always found it suspicious that he wanted out before the Trump administration was formally ended, and at the time speculated, did he know some things that were about to unfold? And by the way, Elie, that would be to his credit. I mean, if he knew that the big lie, quote unquote, was about to unfold, wouldn't you give him credit for not wanting to be a part of it?
Well, yes and no. First of all, I don't believe Bill Barr had specific notice that maniacs were going to storm the Capitol or anything like that. However, I think any sane, rational person, and again, think back to the madness that was enveloping Trump's world in mid-December of 2020. He's lost the election. It's clear to anyone who's got half a brain. And it didn't take a soothsayer to tell that things were going to get nuts. Now, I could see that both ways, Michael. I could see the approach of things are about to get nuts. I don't need to be here for it. I could also see the approach of things are about to get nuts. I'm the Attorney General. I have an important job to do. I will have unique power to address, maybe mitigate that a bit. So I'm going to stay here. But the end of the Trump-Barr relationship, and I break it down in the book, is really fascinating because there's a couple of sort of plot twists that we didn't see coming, right? And the biggest one is that Bill Barr went from months of fanning the flames of the big lie of election fraud. And we can talk about that, but he did it for 6 months and was one of the main people saying there's this huge risk, to suddenly December 1st, a couple of weeks before that letter and that article you just read, Bill Barr publicly came out, went to the Associated Press on his own and said, we've not found evidence of election fraud. So it was an interesting twist ending, and Bill Barr now, in doing his image laundering tour, is trying to remind us of the back half of that, but not the months that preceded it.
The book is a combination of assessment by you as a former prosecutor of Barr's tenure, also chock full of your own trial stories. I don't need to tell you which of the two categories I enjoyed more. By the way, you got to tell this, where are the laces? Where are the laces? What's that a reference to?
So I do, as you say, Michael, in the book, I tell a lot of real life prosecutor stories, trial stories. If you ever wanted to know what's life really like behind those mysterious doors at the Southern District of New York, or what's it like to try mobsters, I have some colorful stories. I put them in there largely for two reasons. One, it's entertaining. People are interested in this stuff, and I like telling these stories. But two, I use them to draw out principles that I think Bill Barr violated. The laces story, I open the book on the very anxious moments before my first ever trial at the Southern District of New York. And by the way, I'm 29 years old, right? I've got my supervisor is this legendary, respected trial, what we used to call a trial animal at the Southern District of New York. He's now a federal appellate judge on the Second Circuit. I say his name, Rich Sullivan. He's okay with me saying his name. And I'm nervous, and I'm dressed up, and I've got everything ready. And I walk in the trial room, and Rich shoots a glance at me. He goes, "What the hell are you wearing?" I said, "What? I mean, wearing what? Everyone, the uniform, the navy blue suit, the white shirt."
Sure, of course.
And he goes, "What's with those shoes? No laces? Are you kidding me? Not in front of a jury." I had like dress shoes, but the slip-on. So it's just one of those, unwritten rules. Less important. There's a lot more important unwritten rules, but I thought that was a good way to open it.
Listen, I once tried a case in central Pennsylvania. It was I was obviously the plaintiff's lawyer, and it was a personal injury action. And there was no more difficult territory than central PA, as Carville represented, the Alabama between Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, to try a case. And when I opened my suitcase the night before trial, I realized I had packed French cuff shirts. So Elie, I drove to Walmart. I remember there was a sign out front that said, "We'll beat any price on any item." I'm thinking, how do you compete with that if you're a merchant anyway? And I went in and I bought some white Oxford cloths that I should have had with me the whole way along. Listen, the trial stories are important, though, in this respect. They're not just fun and entertaining,
right?
But your premise is that he has a deficiency. He had a deficiency as Attorney General, and it's because, unlike you, he never tried cases. Explain.
Yes. Yeah, so this is what I call the prosecutor's code in the title of the book. Every field, every industry, every profession has its written rules and its unwritten rules, whether we're talking media, radio, baseball, right? Baseball, there's a million of these things, and prosecutors are no different. The written rules are very important, the statutes, the sentencing guidelines, the rules of evidence and all that, and that. But the unwritten rules are the ones you can only learn by doing the job. And one of my main criticisms of Bill Barr is, although he's been Attorney General twice, he's never tried a case. He's never had that experience, Michael, you or I have had, standing in front of a jury, having a judge bearing down on you, having the opposing lawyer pick apart everything what you said, going to a sentencing and seeing the gravity of it, seeing the defendant's family crying behind you, being threatened, just understanding what the job is all about. And my argument is, and I sort of tease out various nuances of the prosecutor's code, is because Bill Barr didn't do the job himself, he never properly understood and respected the basics, the fundamentals, the two most important of which are your credibility. You never, forget about lie, you would never lie, but you never fudge the truth, you never shade. People think lawyers do this. Prosecutors are not allowed. I mean, you argue your point, but you're not allowed to withhold damaging information. You're not allowed to fudge. And if you do, you're going to get caught and you're going to get in trouble. So credibility. And the second is independence. Politics I was always raised, and you were always taught, have zero role in any prosecutorial decision that we make here. Bill Barr didn't know, didn't care. And I think a large part is because I call him a prosecutorial charlatan. He never did the job.
Okay, but if he was morally challenged as the attorney general and he was deficient because of what you've just described, why would that have not have hindered him on H.W. Bush's watch? As you point out, he's one of only two to hold the job for two go rounds. And there was not controversy that surrounded him, or not at least that I'm aware of. And I think you acknowledge this in the book during his first tenure.
Yeah, I say he had a fairly routine tenure as attorney general.
Right.
I mean, no attorney general is going to emerge from the job completely conflict free. And he had the Iran-Contra, he was involved in advocating for pardons there, but that doesn't put him outside the box of any other attorney general. It's a great question. What changed between early 93 when he left office and early 19 when he took office again? And I sort of have two answers to that. One is, I think the world around Bill Barr changed. I think our politics changed. I think the polarization, and much of this is due to Donald Trump, but we were heading down this path anyway. Donald Trump accelerated it, but I think the world became much more polarized. Second, Bill Barr, and I blame to some extent his own personal qualities, his own approach to the case. He became more ruthless in his pursuit of power, in his pursuit of the attorney general's job. And whatever line, everyone's got a line that they won't cross. And his line, for whatever reason, moved, I offer a couple reasons, moved to the far extreme of where it was in the early 90s. And we uncover, I think, some interesting reasons behind that, behind why he was willing to go farther than he ever was before. Which I get into in the book, and happy to discuss it.
Well, there's another why question that you ask at the outset of the Culture Warrior chapter. Here's a common question about William Barr. Why? Why would he have sought and agreed to serve as Donald Trump's attorney general in the first place? And what did he stand to gain? And of course, you recount in the book how he wrote that. You call it an audition memo for the gig. Why did he want the gig?
So 3 reasons that I posit in the book. First of all, and this one I don't hold against him at all, the man wanted power, right? Being a prosecutor, even a regular old prosecutor like I was, you have dizzying amounts of power, and it can be intoxicating. And there's nothing wrong with seeking more power. I tried to get promoted. I did at times, and would have gladly moved up the ranks. I did until I left. What I don't buy from Bill Barr is his whole persona of, I don't need this job, and I'm sort of this humble guy who didn't want the gig. BS, because he wrote that memo. He wrote that memo in late 2018, mid 2018, when it was very clear that the AG's job was about to become open because Trump was definitely going to get rid of Jeff Sessions. He wrote that memo. He couldn't have pinned it more precisely to Donald Trump's psyche. The memo said, Robert Mueller's theory of obstruction of justice is fatally misconceived, meaning I'm going to kill it, and he did. That's number one. Number two, Bill Barr has I won't quite call it, it's extreme view of the law, which the legal term for it is the unitary executive, which basically means first of all, the executive branch should be more powerful than the other 2 branches, and the president is the executive branch. Everyone works for and does the president's bidding. Bill Barr has that extreme view and then some. And he ended up arguing in the courts, not just that the president should be the most powerful, but that the president should be untouchable, unsubpoenaable, uninvestigatable. And he lost, by the way, he has a terrible record in the courts. He lost virtually all of these. But the third one, the one that really surprised me when I found it, is Bill Barr is what I call a culture warrior. And we dug up some old speeches he had given in the 90s and some things he had written. And let me just read you some of these. In one speech, Barr touted, and I quote, God's law. He decries bigotry against Catholics. And here's what he writes. We are being pushed steadily off the battlefield, or have been for the last few decades. Occasionally we jab back and poke back as we backpedal. What is our larger strategy for preserving the church and seeing it prevail? How will we get back on the battlefield? So Barr views, and he says all sorts of other extreme things. He says and I quote, this is Bill Barr, the homosexual movement is causing the downfall of society. Everything from violence to mental illness to the drug epidemic. And then he says, Barr, this is really telling. He says this, free government is only sustainable and suitable for religious people. And Judeo-Christian moral standards, not any religion, Judeo-Christian moral standards are the ultimate utilitarian rules for human conduct. So Bill Barr has this extreme view of, look, if you want to be religious or are religious, by all means. But Bill Barr saw it as his mission to bring this religiosity, God's law, as he calls it, back into the public sphere where he felt religiosity was being sort of overtaken by secularism.
Elie, the book is great. I really appreciate it. I'm also happy for your personal success with it because you've been a good friend to the program. We love when you come on and offer your legal analysis, and I wish you continued good things. I got a real kick out of something. I'm not giving it all away. I loved hearing the backstory of you trying John Gotti Jr. They'll have to read Hatchet Man to learn all about it. Good luck with the book, and thank you for being here.
Thanks so much, Michael. I really appreciate it.